Okay, hi everybody. It's August. Oh my gosh, the summer's already gone. Hi, I'm Elaine Hill. I'm the co-chair of the Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board. And if what we can do is just go around the room to do introductions first, we'll do a roll call for the members that are here. Start with Mike. He's at the top of my screen.
I'm Mike Bell. I'm a member of the committee.
The advisory board. We're the advisory board, Mike.
I'm a member of the advisory board.
I'm going to go next. I'm Mary Lou Nuttall. I'm also on the advisory board.
My name is Chris. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going around the room. Go ahead.
Oh,
Chris.
sorry. I'm jumping ahead. My name is Chris Yak. I'm a co-chair with Elaine on the advisory board.
Carol.
Carol Maywood, also a member of the board.
David.
Hi, I'm Dave Peets. I'm, I guess, still a hopeful member of the advisory board.
And then Paul, if you'll introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Paul Reimer. I'm an architect in Tucson, and I'm working with property owners Jill and Aaron Heater, who are also on the call. There they are.
Nice to meet you, property owners of 5354 and 5360.
Great.
Yeah,
Welcome.
beautiful properties.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so we'll just start with the top of the agenda. We did our call to order, a roll call, approval of the minutes of July 26th. Are there any comments about those minutes or corrections that are needed?
I think I got confused. Was it in July that we did the kind of the recap of the separation of the historic district zones as number 5? Anybody? I don't print them. Do you have them, Elaine?
Yes, that was Jody covered the separation.
And
yeah.
Okay, and the comment that I would like to make is that in there, I didn't see a note that said everything had been placed on hold, which is what I understood. And without that in the recording, it felt like it was incomplete. And so I wondered if that should be amended. And if that's what was said, that things were on hold for that separation.
This is Carol. I was also surprised at the minimalism of those minutes, and is that a new standard format? And I also wondered, because we wanted to nominate an additional member, and that was mentioned in the minutes, but it doesn't appear on the agenda for today.
I didn't include it on the agenda because you guys brought it up, and the gentleman, Mr. Gavin, who was there, he said, wait a minute, I'm not sure. And so he seemed rather unsure about being appointed as a member, which is why I didn't include it, because he seemed rather unsure. I did ask the city clerk about the whether or not he had to live within the jurisdiction of the city of Tucson, and they were not sure themselves, and so they were holding off until you got confirmation that this Mr. Gavin was actually interested in being on the board, and then they were going to dig into it a little bit more.
Okay, well, and he has declined because he's just taken a contract with the city, so he cannot at this time be appointed then also to the board.
Correct. Yeah.
So do you want to amend the minutes? So first of all, Mary Lou, are you suggesting the minutes be amended?
Yes, I am suggesting that the minutes, that was that number 5 item, would be amended to clarify some of the detail. I mean, there's just no detail on that topic about the separation. And I think being able to look back at those minutes and see what Jody has been able to tell us, and then what we've been able to glean from other sections, other historic zone folks, is really important. And so, yeah, I would amend those minutes to include more of the detail. And I think, Jody, you've got the recording, so I'm unwilling to approve the minutes as they stand.
So Jody, are you comfortable amending the minutes?
Yeah, I can go back and address these comments.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we'll approve these next time. And then Carol, for the information that you wanted amended, are you suggesting something be amended?
No, I'm just saying that there's very little information in the minutes. I wouldn't call them minutes, but I wonder if that's a new format.
I think, yeah, like the discussion with the property owner of the schoolhouse, is it Callan, that there wasn't detail in there, and we really did provide a lot of detail.
That's true.
That was the previous meeting, not this one.
Oh, that was the previous one?
That was the
Okay.
previous meeting, yeah. I would say that this is an acceptable format for the city attorney, city clerk, but I will go back and add some more details. I did, and I think addressing the additional details that Mary Lou is requesting will also address Carol's concerns. And then there was it noted in there about the nominating the new board member at the next meeting, but again, I just assumed because he was not looking forward.
Right.
I didn't include it.
Okay. Well, and it's a moot point tonight, so very good. Thank you,
Yeah,
Jody.
I would agree that it probably should have stayed on the agenda, because we didn't know until today that he would have declined, right?
Right.
I think it should have been on the agenda for discussion.
You're welcome to, I put these out and I notify you once it's published. I typically try to get these posted a week ahead of time, unless there's something that I don't know about. But you're welcome to email me and say, can you include this? Because I can always revise the agenda. I can't revise the agenda when we're 24 hours before the meeting. When we're in that window, I can't do that. But if it's before that, I can revise the agenda to include something else.
And
Thank you.
anyone can ask for that revision. Any member can ask for that. Okay, so let's move on to item 3, which is a review of 5360s for Lowell. This is a courtesy review. It's not yet been submitted. And Paul, just what we'd like you to do is just do your presentation. If you can also give us some information about where you are in the process, when you plan to submit, and what kind of information you're looking for from us.
That all sounds good. Just like to start by saying that thanking you for allowing us to do this presentation. So it's a pre-application meeting, as you said, and I'm going to start to share my screen. Everybody see a map?
Yep.
Yeah.
Terrific. I'm guessing you probably all are pretty much aware of where 53, 54 East Fort Lowell Road is, but nevertheless, I assume nothing. So there's really two parts to the work that we're looking to do on the property. One is involves landscaping and an in-ground pool, and the other involves the guest house, which is forward on the property closer to Fort Lowell. The main house is not being worked on right now because it's gorgeous, but the house is in need of some love, so that's why we're here. And so a number of things about the guest house that we'd like to just run by you and get an initial impression on and see if we're on the right track, or if there's dissent and you feel like we're heading in the wrong direction. So as we zoom in, the guest house is where we're working, where I'm working as an architect, as a landscape architect who's working on the front yard, and the pool is in here, and we'll see that in the site plan in just a few minutes, or in a minute. And just some of the notable things about the structure that we're working on, some key data points along the way historically. I think everybody's probably, it was the site of a storehouse for the store that was across Fort Lowell, and then in the mid-30s, the building as we know it was constructed, although it was much smaller than it is now. And this being the front elevation, and in subsequent years, the front wall, the low wall was added. You can see in this picture there's no construction to the west. It's not there yet, and this little portal here, which later became the bathroom, was not there yet either. And then historic property inventory, the photo there taken in 1977 shows that wall, shows that fired adobe cap, 3-layer fired adobe cap has been added at least to the front of the existing building, not true of the sides. So those are some changes that have happened. And then here is the current view, which I also assume that you're also pretty familiar with. I want to zoom in on the building just for a minute to talk about a few things that we observed that we'd like to address as we do some work on it. First of all, I'd like to say that the use of the building is not changing. It's going to be a guest house, so that's staying the same. But there's some things that, as I said, I'd like to point out that I think could need to be addressed. One is the condition of the plaster itself, which is in many areas not so great. And I had an expert out to look at it, and his assessment was that the reason it's not doing very well is because it was painted. And with lime plaster over adobe, that's a no-go. And so, because it prevents the adobe and the lime plaster from breathing. And we'll see some of the damage as we move around, especially to the west side of the building. It's really starting to fail. And so we would like to replaster the building and not paint the plaster, but use integral color. We would like to address the sort of deteriorating condition of this cap. And then as a less important thing, we'd also like to address sort of the top form of this wall. And then move around to the back side of the building where some other things are happening, the things that come up in this. Oh, and also these windows, the two windows who are original here, this front door and the trim around it are not. They need some love, but they will remain the same windows. They'll just be refurbished and repainted. So I want to move around to this. So this is the west side of a portion, an adobe portion of the building that was added later. And you can see multiple areas here where the plaster is really in really bad shape and starting to fall off. And this wall, as we move even to the south side, you can see that it's starting to move away from the building, fall away from the building, really, with this crack here. And that is something that is concerning. certainly is something that we want to address in our work on this building. And well, I mean, this will come up in several images, but I talked to several structural engineers about this, and was getting a pretty consistent response to this. Ron Schneider, the most recent discussion, was convinced that a way he's dealt with this in the past is to pour a concrete bond beam basically around top of it to sort of pull it together, which I think would mean that in this elevation, we would have to put, we would have to raise a parapet here in order to connect the entire, all the four walls around that building, or this part of the building.
Paul, would you tell me that term again that you just said? It sounds like it's a concrete bar across there. But what was the term that you used?
It's called a bond beam, beam, B-O-N-D. And it would be continuous around so on the west wall and the north wall. And then we would need to sort of fill in underneath this so that it would complete the square or the rectangle, really. And so that's one of the things we're looking at, and certainly would like your opinions on. And I'll show you. I've got some computer images of what it would look like if we were to do that. And then I also want to address this part of the building, which is furthest to the south, which is of a very different vintage and a very different construction. It's wood frame, very thin, certainly not thick enough for current insulation codes. I think it's 2x4 construction, windows being very different, non-operable. And we're thinking of this part of the building being redefined to be more like the older parts. But one thing that's for sure about this building, it's been acted on many times over its lifespan. And here's a picture of the main house. And so another thing we'd like to try to do is to really unify the property. So there's some of the things that we're going to be proposing come from the main house in particular. If I can zoom in here a little bit. Let's see, these two, this set of doors, which it's hard to see, but there's a wood frame, and then there's diagonal wood planking in it, which we think is pretty nice and character defining. And then these two doors here, these double doors, the color of those guys and the way the panes are made up are things that will come back as we some of the windows that are on the south side, not the street side. The street side ones are staying as they are. And so here's a site plan of the area, with the north being to your right, the main house here, back of the lot. This is the existing guest house. This is the portion of the guest house that I was saying was much more recent and constructed in a very different way. And then between where the new in-ground pool is planned to go. And then in addition to that, there's new landscaping, and part of the landscaping package, something we'd like to propose is replacing the wood fence that runs along in this location, is replacing that with a more permanent masonry wall that's clad in stucco to match the main house. And that we would like to have that wall encircle the entire property. That goes all the way around. The parking is more or less the same. There's two dedicated parking spots for the main house and two for the guest house. And the windmill, the windmill doesn't go anywhere, it stays the same. So I'd like to just quickly zoom into the guest house to lay out some of the changes that we're proposing for that. And so right now, the way it lays out, this is
a couple of questions about the first part before we go to that.
Do you want me to back here?
If you don't mind, just go back to that, the photos of the back of the guest house.
Yes, that one?
No, that one. Do you,
yes.
Can you tell me what the heights of those parapets are and the height of that building both this part of the building and the shed. I think what was there was probably a shed that was built or something, right? The one that's just adjacent
This-
to it.
This
But
one?
yeah, I think that must have been some kind of a shed or something that was redone. But if you wouldn't mind, just step through the different heights from the main house, the historic front house. Yeah,
So this part is about from the ground up. This is about 10'4" to the top of this. And this guy right here is a foot shorter, a full foot shorter. It's about 9'4". I can almost reach the top of the plaster here. So this is over 8 feet. Right here is the top of the plaster. So short.
that's from the ground to the top of the plaster, the top of the parapet.
The 10'4" is to the top of the parapet, 9'4" here, top of the parapet here, right here
Okay.
at the corner.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And then go, if you'll
Sure.
move back to the other picture, to the back.
See if I'm going in the right direction here. I'm not. Here we go. So the height of this top plate here, is just below 8 feet. It's also low, but it slopes up. Hard to tell from this image, but it's sloping up away from us.
Right. It has like a clear story window or something in it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, as it sits on the top of the roof over what is the kitchen area.
And then the kitchen area, how tall is that?
Oh my gosh, that is low. I'm going to be guessing on this one. I know I can. I've got a handy measuring device. When I reach up and touch something, that's 8 feet.
That's right.
Uh,
Somewhere
it's-
between 8 and
I
9,
can-
it sounds like, right?
I can easily touch the ceiling in the kitchen, so it's probably right around 8 or less.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let's see, site plan. I was just talking about how the building, we're hoping to use the building in the future. So the current front door facing Fort Lowell, north being to your right, is this door right here. And presumably the way the building was used and would be used is that this could be the living room because there's a fireplace. And this would make a good bedroom. And then the kitchen is here. This is that new addition, which was, don't know exactly what it was. Might have been an art studio. But we were thinking that the entrance directly into the living room wasn't ideal. That without sort of any sort of threshold, wondering if there was another way to sort of think about this building and use it. And so one of the ideas that we had that we seemed to like the most was to sort of switch the uses of different rooms around. And I think that their rooms are all open-ended enough to easily do this. Is that we were thinking that maybe this is the bedroom and that this would not be the primary entrance, but the door would remain. And instead of that, we could have an entrance come along the west side of the building, and then turn and put a new gate in that existing site wall into here and use the existing bathroom as the entry. So this is a new door in the location of an existing window in the bathroom. And then from here, if this is the entrance, this could be the living room. And then from there, you go through a hallway, which is actually, this is now the HVAC closet. Go through a hallway, and in here, you could enter the bedroom or go into the kitchen. And then the bathroom, which had been here, is going to be relocated to this location. It's not clear what this would be previously. And the kitchen is over here, and then dining room here. And this is a new piece, an expansion of the footprint. The existing footprint really is this, and we're hoping to add this powder room here to serve the pool area, which is just to the south. And so that's our thinking in terms of the floor plan. And then from the street elevation, we're hoping, as I said, the windows remain the same. This The cap here, what we're proposing here is actually something that would be sort of a hybrid of what's there and would match the main house, and that there's just a single course of adobe at the top. And this is showing that the two would be the same height now because there's a concrete bond beam over this section. So that would all match. We have renderings to show what that looks like. So I said the windows are the same. The front door, which we said is not historical, we would like to replace because it's really falling apart. I have renderings of that, but a wood plank door to match in the main house. And then you can see here, this is where the new entrance would be. Better to see that in the renderings, I think harder to describe in elevation. And then this is the new site wall that replaces the wood fence that's there now with a new gate in it. And so I think, as I said, I think it's better to probably look at renderings. It's easier to talk about. So this is,
If you wouldn't
This
mind
is-
going back one step, and I do have a question about that parapet. So you're asking to raise
ahead.
the parapet just on that addition or on the entire house?
just on this section right here, and it may be in plan, it's this piece right here. Because it's this wall, that's the one that's the most in danger of falling down. And so in that elevation, we're just seeing this part of it, but the bond beam would go all the way around. You just couldn't see it from the street because there's this piece in the way.
Okay.
So
thank you.
this is raised by 1 foot right here, but this is the same. No change, because the adobe here seems to be in pretty good shape. No problems with that. So here we are. This is the proposed entranceway. This is the existing wall. We are proposing that the top of the wall be cleaned up a bit, but the wall essentially would remain as in its same place, same material. And here, this is the existing building, and then this is the new site wall. I've got a number of images, so it might be good to sort of go through them. But if you have questions, by all means, jump in. Just a few.
This is Mike Bell. I have a question. Or a
Sure.
comment, like, could you go back to the site plan, or actually the front elevation? Well, that was a good one, the last picture.
Should I go to that image, the rendering?
Right
This
here,
one?
yeah.
Yep.
You have eliminated that front gate from this, is that correct?
No, here, hang on just a second. We'll get there. It's still here.
Um,
We're just not going, this isn't intended to be the primary entrance anymore, but there's still a gate.
I noticed there was also a gate looked like a gate on the east side from inside the patio. Site plan, you'll see what I mean.
Okay, let's go back.
Actually to
Ah.
the,
Is that
Yeah.
this one?
right.
Yeah, that's an existing gate and
My suggestion would be that you close off that front gate to avoid when you come up to the front of this building, your natural inclination is gonna go to that front door
mhm.
rather than the side door. So if you close off that front gate, that's gonna eliminate that problem.
Mhm.
And you still have access if you needed it out the patio. That would increase the privacy of that bedroom a lot.
Mhm.
I
Just
would
to
disagree with you, Mike, but yeah,
Yeah, let's argue.
let's argue.
Just let me know when you're done. And,
Wait, let me get my phone. Text it to you. No, just kidding.
yeah, thank you.
What was your,
But mine?
no, Elaine,
Oh,
What's my comment?
yeah, why were you disagreeing?
Because that gate and the front presentation, the front facade of the house has had that opening there, and it accommodates basically the visibility of the historic structures.
Well, maybe you could put a piece of ironwork in there or something, but something that closes that off and doesn't invite you to the wrong door.
Well, let's go ahead.
Okay. See, we were about right here, I think. Just a few more detailed shots of what that might be like. And there's the front gate in question, the disputed front gate. Yeah, the model does not show that gate that's over here, which exists, and we have no intention
So
of
I have
getting rid
another
of it.
question about the front wall. That has
Mhm.
a definite quality of an old adobe wall that somebody plastered. I was looking at it, trying to figure out whether it was a rock wall they plastered over or an adobe, and I can see from the courses that it's an old adobe wall.
Mhm.
And this doesn't show that character. Do you intend to keep that character, or do you intend to sort of modernize it with this squared off look you have in the rendering?
That is a great question. Thank you. I should have covered that. This is a broad caveat for all of these renderings. These are computer generated. Computer doesn't do old Adobe very well. So no, the intention is to leave the wall, although I think replastering it would be a good idea. But the Adobe should not be changed. Our proposal is only that the top of it might be cleaned up a little bit because it's very varied and wavy, which in my humble opinion is not actually Adobe like, unless it was, as you said, it's an old Adobe wall. It's been allowed to weather, but I think in this case that's a contrivance and not a real weathering. my
Really?
opinion. I mean, it's not there originally, so it's not super old. It was there in the 1977 photograph, but it wasn't present in the 1936 photograph or mid 30s. That's just my opinion. But anyway, we're just trying to clean up the top. It is we still intend to keep the wall in its original structure. One of the things that I'm curious about in this building is, I mean, I've had a significant amount of experience with Adobe, but I have never seen it in 8-inch thickness before. And this wall and the walls of the building are all 8 inches thick, which is kind of surprising.
It was one of the first constructions. So this house was built by a man who built a lot of houses in this neighborhood.
Yeah,
This was
it's
one of the first ones.
the Cedro
Cedro
Showa
Joe.
was this.
Yeah, he built my house.
Just out of curiosity, do you know how thick your walls are?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Might be 8 inches.
Your windowsill, how deep is your windowsill?
These are, that's where I measured the thickness of the wall. You mean how far back are the windows set? Or
Well, just wondered if, I was actually thinking about Elaine's windowsills. 'Cause
oh,
I think
you're
she's
asking
got
Elaine.
She's got deep windowsills, I thought.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For those walls.
It's now-
They're 8 inches easily,
Yeah,
maybe more.
Chances are, I
they're
mean, just
easily 8
looking,
inches, yeah.
just looking at the header over the door behind you, I think your walls are definitely more than 8 inches thick. Anyway, I thought you were talking about these. These are
Mhm.
existing, so it's
Sorry.
not changing.
Yeah.
And moving around to the other side of the house, this is actually the west side. So this is the wall that's being repaired. This is the volume that's got the new bond beam on it here. So here the work is more significant. Right now there's a sliding glass door that's in considerable disrepair right here. So we're thinking of replacing that with doors that match the ones on the main house. And then the kitchen doors, there's currently just a single door there. We would like to have similar French doors in that location. And this is the part that's currently what might have been a shed or a studio.
I think you're right, it was a studio because it was built by Charles Baudet, who was an artist.
Right. And so this low wall here around the mesquite as a new addition to in the landscape to sort of hold this court in, that, you know, sort of giving it to the guest house. Pool is over here to the right.
And this art studio, you would be demolishing and building new?
That was the recommendation of the builder. He thought, and I tend to agree with him that it wasn't particularly well built. I mean, one of the concerns I had was just it's not thick enough insulation if you wanted to bring it up to code. But so anyway, that is the proposal, that we are reconstructing this portion.
Are you using CMUs for that reconstruction?
I don't know yet. We only know its form. You know that economics will play a role, but right now wood is so dynamic. It's not guaranteed that would be cheaper than CMU. CMU is always a better choice because it doesn't have, you know, the termite issue. Or ICFs, I guess I would like to introduce that into the possibility mix.
Could you explain that question, Mike, for me and Carol and everyone else?
I asked what would be concrete block
Okay,
as opposed to wood frame.
thank you.
Mhm. Now, on this view, as the doors come out, the over that kitchen, that new double kitchen door, is
Mhm.
that just a wood beam, or is it a cover, an awning, or?
I think the next image will help clarify.
Yep.
That's a new
Good.
roof.
Okay, so it's a porch, makes a,
Well, there's just an overhang that's protecting these doors. I mean, it's
Okay.
probably, I don't think you would feel like it's deep enough to call it a porch. But
okay,
currently there's a low roof over that kitchen. We're extending
Okay.
that.
okay.
And this is a new window in the dining area, and this is a window in the new bathroom. I think getting towards the end, but I just, I don't know how many of you looked at the slideshow that Jody distributed, but there's more images here than there are in that slideshow, because we felt like, well, why not bring as many ideas in front of you as we could to get them the most feedback, rather than wait until we've actually submitted for permit. Bringing it back to one of the issues that Elaine was asking for at the beginning, where are we in our process? Where we are in our process is we've got the schematics for the guest house to this point, but no further. And the landscape plan is more advanced. And so one of the things we haven't really talked about is the owners would like to phase the construction in 2 phases. One first would be the landscape. Pool guys are more or less ready to go. The landscape is ready to go. We are not ready to go in the guest house yet, but we thought we'd present the whole package because they do go together. And I think there's just a few more images. This is an image of the front gate, which is a takeoff from the wood frame and slatted design from the main house, with something a bit more contemporary possibly. This was just a schematic of the handle for opening it. And I think this is the last image. This is the new door cut into the entry of the guest house, showing the vertical plank door with the frame. And just so you're aware of exactly how much of the existing wall we're affecting here, the window in what's now the existing bathroom is probably about this big. So we're cutting a little bit higher, so we're matching the height of this window, and we're cutting a little bit wider to get a good door there. I think it's a 2-way door. And that is the end of our show. So if anybody wants to go back to any slide.
I see lentils in some windows and not in others.
Actually, the only one that I think is staying is this, which exists. Let me go back to the original. I'm pretty sure, yeah, there are no lentils here. And we're not, I mean, we're not changing any of those. So the only one that's going to remain is here.
There are
That
no
guy.
lintels over the doors or other in the front
Let's go
that
back to
maybe
the
you're not
original.
seeing because it's,
There are definitely lintels there because have to have them in an adobe structure, but they are buried in beneath the plaster.
what about the main house?
Let's go to the main house. See what we can see. I mean, there's a lot of deep shadow there. It looks to me, and I'll zoom in, that the lintels are ornamental, at least the ones that are exposed. Let's see. Clearly there's one there, but that's actually an overhang. But this lintel right here over the main entrance door into the kitchen is ornamental. You can see because there's plaster underneath it, which structurally doesn't make any sense.
Could you, the character of the cap on this wall, on the
Yes.
top wall, do you see the house being that kind of a character?
This would be,
Or at least on
there's
the front where you have adobe?
two parts to that answer. The first is that, yes, I mean, this is fired adobe as well, which makes it, clearly gives it a vintage later than the original construction. The one thing that we would try to avoid is what you can see here is all this white stuff at the top, which has
Right.
got to be the roofing membrane being brought up the parapet and over the
Right.
top. We would like to not do that. And we're just showing the fired adobe without the layer of goo on top.
Talking really more about the character of the raw surface of the
Yeah,
adobe.
yes, and so our hope is that the existing, there's a fair amount of fired adobe on the building, and our intention is to reuse that.
I'm one of the opponents that the underlying material tells you a lot about how something's built. So you get a smooth, sometimes steel plastered on CMUs, and you just can't get that character of the adobe unless it happens to be adobe underneath. So I would hope that on the front of the guest house, if you can, that you keep that old style kind of feel to it.
I think that we all are in complete agreement about that.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. No, something we've had long discussions about is about the nature of the front wall. I mean, the existing one that's there is one question, and I think we can answer that by saying it's going to stay. But then there's the wall, the new site wall that's replacing the wood fence, and that we're looking at the possibility of CMU, or perhaps we could use ICFs, which I think we might have the ability to influence. ICFs are ICF stands for insulated concrete formwork, but they're basically large blocks made of a variety of material. The one I think that I would recommend is made out of, I'm going to dig myself too deep a hole here. It's made out of recycled building materials. It's all chipped up. And they're usually, you can buy them 12 inches wide, 15 inches wide. They can be fairly thick. And then you stack them up, and then you pour concrete into them to reinforce them and tie them all together. The thing I like about ICFs, and that I think gives them greater promise than CMUs. And CMU over time, as I'm sure you've seen, will start to crack, and those cracks telegraph through the plaster, and then you can see very clearly, well, this is not an adobe wall, this is a CMU wall. And we can avoid that. We can certainly use lath in the plaster. We can use a self-healing plaster, a lime plaster for that, and that certainly will help. The thickness of the plaster helps. But the ICFs don't do that, right? They're tied together with concrete, and they are essentially, after you do that, they're a monolith, and so they won't crack that way. And because there's a thickness of sort of softer, well, it's not soft, but softer than the concrete block, there's the opportunity there that we might actually sort of rough it up before we plaster it. And that will give some variation to the surface.
I think one of the components of the house that's currently there that is so significant is the beautiful rounded edges. And as much as you say, like the top of that wall is crumbling and absolutely, you know, I understand repair or capping and all of that, to not lose. And that, I think, Mike, is the character that even as you change that gate, and whether I agree with Elaine, we might have to argue about whether or not that gate can be moved, but even without that, the nature of that is really all these well-rounded edges, and the house itself, even, and I think, and I have to admit, it's been so long since I've been back in on that property to look at like the studio rooms, but the house that was originally there had all those all the edges were rounded, and that is the nature that makes it, I think, such a beautiful home. So when I look at those pictures, and they're all so stark, and I think it is the rendering from the computer that's done that, it kind of makes me uncomfortable. But everything that I've heard really sounds like you've taken into consideration those items. And even the wall, the brick that you put in, it looks like the brick that's in the house that you're showing us right now, the main house, it also has nice brick walkway, and the walkway winds. And that is one of the things that you've kind of lost with the new wall that you're putting up for the front door, is it's all of a sudden it's squared and everything else is kind of
Modernized.
well, it's more modern, but everything else is kind of wanders, and the rest of the house wanders except for that new entry. And I just wonder if there's something, you know, and I don't think that piece is just the rendering, but I think it's the way that you've tried to capture an entry. So I think that's the only place where I've had the biggest concerns. And of course, I think it's really a hard time to hear that somebody's talking about building a pool, just because we have all these water shortages and
Take my pool. You can have my pool.
but anyway, I mean, that's just another, that's probably more personal than anything else.
Paul, would you go back to what I think is number 6 in this deck that was sent to us?
Full sheet. No, that is.
No, it's the actual closer photo of the existing house from the front.
Of this one or the guest
No,
house?
the Isidro Ochoa house.
Got it.
That
Okay.
that
Yeah.
one. Okay. So this is iconic. I mean, you have to remember that this was one of the first houses. It is, it's on the National Register as part of the storehouse of the Post Trader store. It's an iconic image in this neighborhood.
Mhm.
And part of that is what makes iconic is that it's vernacular. It's people built this house to live in because it was useful, right? And they built onto it for the same reasons. When they needed more space, they would add another room. The walls, I believe, like you said, I don't know what the dates of the walls are, but I think they're 60s probably, because Charles Baudet owned this house for a long time. And even that, the character of that wall, the messiness of that wall is part of it. It's part of something that you don't see elsewhere in Tucson, at least in this, east part of Tucson. And it does lend to the history of this neighborhood and the history of the fort. And in my opinion, this frontage needs to stay exactly the same. So adding a new wall that's very much more uniform. So you're talking about taking down the eastern part or the western part of this wall, right? To add a new wall.
The only part of this wall that would be removed was be just enough to put the gate in right here. Let's see, I'll go to the next image. There's a gate that goes in right here. That's it. Otherwise, the wall stays here. We were asking your opinion if we could clean up this edge right here was the one we were hoping to.
But that edge is part of what happens with Adobe. I mean, in the fort, if the city had continued to cap Adobe like they did initially, they would have saved a lot of Adobe walls because they would have capped them or plastered them or something, right? And that was what was done at the Adkins parcel, just to the west of you or to the east of you. They capped a lot and plastered a lot of the original Adobe walls, and they're really rough. I mean, that's what's left of them. And then this is what's left of this wall, right? So is it just that you want it to be cleaner and nicer? I mean, is that the idea that
I mean,
to make it more contemporary?
no, I mean, that's not, I hear what you're saying. One of the things I was trying to suggest earlier is that I agree with you completely, and I understand that process of Adobe erosion. My speculation was that this wall isn't really old enough to, certainly not part of the fort. It wasn't there when the house was built. It's not old enough for this weathering condition to be real. I was suggesting that this is an affectation, or this is a contrived weathered edge. It's not
Just
truly
a
weathered.
lousy mason.
No, it could have been.
No, I think
yes,
the
it could have
intention
been
is,
an affectation, but it was it was an interpretation in that at that time, right? Just like an interpretation at this time is going to try to make it more contemporary.
and I appreciate that. And I'm not trying to argue, but I would just like to put it out there. The intention isn't to make the building more contemporary as an agenda. But I would say this, and I think that this is something that's unique to our part of the world, Southern Arizona, Sonora, is that one thing that Adobe does really well is it makes boxes. And you need Adobe to make a box to make it structurally sound, right? You've got to turn the corner and the box can't be too big or the walls will not support themselves well. And they make square, with squared tops. And contemporary architecture sort of has a similar agenda, right? There's a lot of boxes. And so the distance between the traditional Adobe structure and modern structures is not the same as it is if you were working on the East Coast. The distance between traditional structures and modern structures is really quite dramatic. I think here it's not so much, but we're not trying to contemporize the building. I think that we're probably all sympathetic, and the computer renderings are one of the things that gets in our way. Sometimes is that it just looks too clean, too polished, too squared off. But I'm very sympathetic to what you're saying, but also what Mayor Lou was saying is that, maybe the character and the pathway and the character that made this, that has sort of an eye for whenever something gets to be too square, too clean, you do something, right? You soften it, you turn it, you curve it.
Well, and that's what I wondered. Can you show us that rendering of it's the computer generated one where it showed this entry again?
This one, that one.
I have to tell you, having heard your presentation, I'm a lot less I have more understanding of what you're trying to do with the parapet, and especially along that backside as opposed to the front. But yeah, this is the one where you've got the two walls and the step down, and the step down doesn't match what's there. And then the step down on the newest wall
Yes.
also gives even an awkward feel. So, and then the brick straight out. And I'm assuming you can do something to make that swoop or meander, or you'll
Soften it.
yeah.
Hey, Paul, can I just say something real quick?
Please do.
Just to kind
Yes.
of, help you guys. And Paul and I were definitely concerned about this going into it with the renderings, because they do look so square. But that absolutely is not our intention. And when I do have some initial conversations with builders that would be potentially helping us with this wall, I'm very, very careful to explain that it has to have this rolling kind of soft nature to it all throughout the wall, just as it does in a lot of the older walls that are within our neighborhood. We don't intend to have it squared off like this. And even with what Paul was kind of describing with the comparison of how the wall in front of the guest house exists today versus what he has for his vision, I think we're all in agreement that, we're happy to keep the character of that current wall as much as possible. I think all he was kind of trying to say is right now, like there's like super loops, and we'll still keep those loops. It's just with the addition of, with the new plaster, it just might be smoothed out a little bit, but it's still going to be a lot of waviness and a lot of character that remains. Those are the things that I too, Mary Lou, really, really love about this house. All of its quirkiness, all of its imperfections that I think make it super perfect. So I just want to kind of, tell you guys where I'm coming from too. We're definitely not trying to make this super modern and contemporary.
I might point out, I think the treatments you're talking about doing with these walls, it's really important that you vary the top of that, the wall that's going, well, it's the north-south wall, but it's heading west, the site wall there. That thing has to be, the top really needs to move around a little bit so that it has the same character as those walls on the main house, the low walls, where they're not a straight line across there. If it was a straight line, I'd maybe recommend you use a cap like you did on the top. But I think it needs to roll and move a little bit like we're talking about for the existing walls.
Yeah.
I got a question about the landscape. When will we have a chance to look at that? And are you aware of the plant lists and books that we have for the historic district that names all the plants that grow here and why they'd be appropriate to use? The landscape architect should have that information.
Yeah, absolutely, they do. So very soon after we moved in, Brandy Jett, she came over and gave us the book for the Fort Lowell Neighborhood Association. And I find this stuff fascinating. So we reviewed it thoroughly, and both Paul and our landscape architect, which is a gentleman named Matthew, he works at a company called Wheat Design. They are all aware of the appropriate plants that we can and can't use.
Good.
We do have some plans from the landscape designer that are pretty finalized, that we should be able to get in front of you guys. But the picture that you're seeing here, you're seeing quite a bit of plant life. And I think part of that's to kind of make it look really beautiful, but that actually won't necessarily exist in real life. We're not really doing a whole lot with the landscape as you see it in the front of the house as it currently exists today. So keeping those mesquite trees. I'm dropping the name of the one that smells really good in the springtime, the creosote, yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, just to clarify, the neighborhood association didn't write those books, the historic zone did.
Sorry.
Historic District Board did.
In case
We
they
need to
took,
give ourselves credit for something, right?
Well, I feel like this was very sensitively presented. I feel like the plans appear to be something that that you've thought about. Unfortunately, it's like I'm looking at this one thinking, please don't look like this.
That's
But-
why we're
but that's
here.
what I heard you- yes, but that's what I heard you say, that it really won't look, these walls won't look like this. We won't lose those
Yeah.
beautiful walls. We won't lose that beautiful face. And I want to go back to Elaine's point that this is iconic. And I know that in our design review guidelines, this house is in there as one that people should try. And we don't think new construction should be a perfect replica. It should match and contribute, but not be, not be a replica of what was there before. But you should be able to tell that, oh, it is new construction. It's all right to do that. But that face is really important, and it's on the National Registry, which makes it even more critical. But I really appreciate this. So I thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that. And we're really grateful for the opportunity to be able to have this discussion before we take it much further and then, submit. I want to circle back to the landscape plan just for a second. There is a landscape plan, it's just not in this package. Because I didn't anticipate that we would get into a discussion about plant species, but it exists. And it would be part of the submission to the city, so I do expect you will see that when
Good.
we have the real meeting.
Well, we're happy to look at it beforehand too. I mean, I think it'll save you time.
Okay.
Because the landscape is part of the consideration for the review.
Yeah. Well, I
And
assume
it's
so.
also for when you take it to the commission, it'll be a consideration for review. And Mike is a landscape architect, so if you're willing to share with him or
Mhm.
me or anyone on this board to kind of walk through that, I think it's to your advantage.
Yeah, I mean, it exists, so there's really no reason to not take you up on that, your generous offer.
Are there other comments? We haven't heard from Chris or Carol or David.
I took a look at the project and all the slides prior to the meeting. This house has an incredible amount of character. I think we beat the parapet wall or not the parapet, but the surrounding wall on the front to death. But I think, and keeping that character is really important. But in general, I think the property and the plans are incredibly thoughtful. I think it's incredibly tasteful, and also I know this stuff is not free and it's very expensive. I understand that. So thank you for making the investment in the neighborhood and rehabilitating and kind of, saving this home. I think this is incredibly important, and thank you for being good stewards.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
We absolutely love this neighborhood. I still remember the first time that we turned down on East Fort Lowell Road, not having any idea what it was. And it looked like we were stepping back in time. And that's what really drew us to this house. And we love that about it.
Carol, would you like to add comments?
Really nothing to add. I think everybody's covered all the thoughts I had, and especially the last comment of Chris's, that it's nice to know that this precious little piece of property is going to survive and to have a healthy future. And as a board, we appreciate you coming ahead of time and talking things through, because it certainly makes for probably a more directive process for you and a more successful outcome. Thank you.
And the only other comments I would add is that when you come back for review, that we will be much more detailed about the details, about the finishes, the colors, the windows, what kind of windows they are, the doors, how many lights in the doors, you know, those kinds of things. And wherever, I'd encourage you to, wherever possible, to not introduce contemporary concepts, like even in the handles of the gates or things like that. If you can mimic some of the other designs that are in the neighborhood, then we'll be much happier.
So, yeah. And I know doors and windows, you know, that seems to be the biggest concern. So like a plank door, okay, but I want to see the plank door. I mean, I realize it seems like that's way down the line, but we will want to, just like your gate, for your big wall. I mean, that was a cool gate. So anyway, cool. David, did you have anything? Oh, maybe we lost him.
There he is.
No, not really. I have to admit, when I first saw the renderings, I guess like many of you, did feel a little bit of a disconnect with the with the nature of the wall as it now is, right? That's just really quite extraordinary. But I think, I've heard comments about the sensitivity to that from both the homeowners and the architect to to put me at ease with that. And I guess I'd just like to echo Chris's comments. As new homeowners to the area, it's just really a delight and very reassuring to hear the new owners of this property really being invested in the historical nature of their property as well as the neighborhood. So thank you very much for that.
Well, great. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. And feel free to call us. I mean, feel free to use us. That's what we're here for.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So nice to meet you all virtually.
Meet in person. We were talking about trying to get some kind of a get together.
I would love
Cocktail
that.
party.
And I'd be happy to walk you guys through the property at any point to see how it exists today too, if you guys were ever interested.
Great. That'd be great. I'd love to.
I'd love to too. It's been so long.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. We'll go back to, and you guys are free to stay if you wish or sign off.
All right. I'm going to sign off. Thank you all so much again. I should
Thank you.
stop sharing before.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time tonight.
Sure. Good night.
So back to the agenda item 4, the inventory discussion. I wish I had more to discuss. I don't really have much to discuss on that because of a lot of other activity that's going on. But I really do want to rev up this inventory, to collect all the new inventory information. We really need to do that. We've been needing to do it for a long time. And I was hoping to do it in August. Well, August is already gone, so I haven't done it. But maybe this fall we can do it.
Elaine, are we all thinking, or, I mean, I keep falling back to, we need to hire somebody to do it.
Even if we hire somebody, we still need to get organized to do that part of it.
Okay.
We don't really have an audience except for David, since he hasn't been confirmed.
Didn't receive anything prior to the meeting.
And Jody, do you have any updates, staff updates?
The one is, you'll recall, it must have been in the July meeting, Wyatt Berger was in my place taking notes.
Yes.
Wyatt is going to be doing Fort Lowell, not this month, obviously, not next month, but after that. Wyatt will be the one attending your meetings, and taking minutes and everything like that. I will, we've kind of gone over some stuff, and will be reviewing projects as they come in to make sure that they have all the required documents and putting the agenda together and everything like that. So I just wanted to let you know, you'll start.
So is
seeing
he,
Wyatt soon.
part of your staff now?
He is, no, he's like a quarter. So I'm like 2 1/4 now, if that's what you're asking. It's me and Michael and 1/4 of Wyatt. He's just got a few hours, like 10 hours the week that he's dedicating to historic. So he's not fully with me, but he's helping out.
Awesome.
I'll take what I can get. It's better than a sharp
Yeah.
stick in the eye.
Yeah. And I guess I have to ask, I feel like this presentation tonight went pretty well, but it sure would have been easier in person. Is there any idea that we will go back to in-person meetings?
We not received anything from the city clerk. You may be aware that mayor and council has gone back in person. But we have been waiting for directives from the city clerk to what we can do. We have it's called OWL. It's a hybrid, it's equipment to do hybrid meetings, because there's maybe some people who don't want to go back in person. But the question is that just for meetings at the Public Works building, or is that equipment that we can bring out or out and about at, like when I have to go to Fort Lowell or Armory Park or wherever. So we're not really sure. I will tell you, when we first started the pandemic, we had projects getting backed up because the city clerk was not getting direction out to us. And the advisory board, I was pushing them, hey, we need to get projects going. We have these in the queue. And so we were the first one to get going, but they weren't all that comfortable with us going virtual. And now I think they're not comfortable with us going back in person. I don't know. So yeah, we haven't gotten anything, but we've been asking.
Is there anything stopping us from going, gathering together as a group when we do this?
Yes. I mean, because that's the direction that we're waiting for from the city clerk. I mean, in theory, I guess, Elaine has had, like, I think it was Mary Lou that was at her house at the last meeting. You're all crowded around one computer, but to be frank, it was really hard to hear Mary Lou. Like Mary Lou kind of, I think it was you kind of set off to the side. And so whenever you were speaking, you couldn't hear her. I couldn't hear you. And the recording sure as heck didn't get you. So, I mean, in theory, you could gather together. You would just want to have better microphones or something like that. I can't stop you from doing that. But there's just no been direction from the city clerk about having in-person meetings. So you would still have the applicant that would not be there.
Okay, well, maybe it'll change for September. Who knows?
We'll see. Fingers crossed.
We'll see. Cool. Okay. Anything else, Elaine?
Future agenda?
Hopefully we'll have the Kaylin Norgood, which is the courtesy review that you did in July, coming in for the September meeting. I talked to him late last week, I think, when I was down there, and was giving him some dates. So I think that he may be ready to roll. So we'll see. That's the only one that I can think of.
Which property was that, Jody, again?
Oh, that was
50
the one
5301.
House Roarings, 5301.
Yeah.
East Fort Lowell.
And
Thank you.
Jody, just to remember, while yes, we do have dates, we have always been of the mindset that if somebody is ready to go, we can call a special meeting. We've done that in the past and would do it again, because we don't want them to say that in Fort Lowell, they're always waiting for meetings. So we just so that if that comes up, I mean, we can't meet tomorrow night, but we could plan for a meeting sooner than that one at the end of September, if that was needed.
And I appreciate that. And I think that you guys have definitely shown that in the past and you've gotten together. We do generally let applicants know upfront. I have my list of, Barrio meets the second Monday, West University and Armory Park meet the third Tuesday. You guys meet the fourth Tuesday, and El Presidio actually is the one that's just a floater. So I always have my days of the week, and we're pretty upfront with when everybody meets, so they know to schedule that. And it gives them an opportunity, because we give them a deadline of when they have to submit to get on an agenda and have the complete package so they can get on a particular agenda. So it is pretty well set like that, but I do appreciate you reiterating that.
So what's going on with the butterfly book?
Well, before we talk about that, there is another update that will probably be on a future agenda, and it has to do with the Placita del Mesquite lot. Remember that one?
Yes.
That lot is back in escrow again with new buyers. And I did get a call from somebody that asked if a small adobe house would be more appropriate, and I said, better than what was proposed the first time. So I don't know what stage they're in or with as far as planning, but that could come back on the agenda. And then the other thing that may come onto our agenda, depending on what happens, is there have been complaints about 5425, the Post Trader store, about the way the landscape was treated. And I haven't seen any follow-up yet from the city, but I hope there will be.
Mike, they took out Saguaros. Did you know that?
Well-
I didn't know that.
So I want to caution you to be careful about discussing this at length. We have gotten into trouble before, not your group, but another group, for discussing a project that wasn't agendized.
Right, that's why I'm saying it may be on our future agenda. Okay. Anything else on the future agenda? Is anybody aware that we should put something on? Mike, you were just asking about the butterfly book.
I was kidding. I don't want to know about it.
You don't want to know? I thought maybe you'd been working on it.
No, I thought maybe it was part of the agenda,
Yeah, because it was always on the
I thought the
agenda.
inventory and the butterfly book were somehow connected.
Okay.
Oh, a smooth joke.
Do you want me to include next month the inventory discussion again?
I don't think I'm gonna get a lot of time to work on it this month, but I wish I did. I wish I could, but I'm not sure that I will.
I'll include it, and if it doesn't happen, then we can just do the same thing, that you have no new updates.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Can we adjourn this meeting? Someone told me I don't have to ask for a motion to adjourn. Is that true? Can I just adjourn it?
Well,
Adjourn it.
and I want to make sure, is everything moving forward on David, so that he had all his parts for the city clerk's office so they could present it to mayor and council? Do we know that?
He does.
Okay,
It's the city clerk put him on the agenda. I'll check tomorrow to see where they have him on the agenda. They're meeting tonight, but they would have told you if you were on the agenda. I'll check.
thank you.
It's just the consent agenda, right?
Yeah, and then he has to take his oath of office.
Card carrying.
Okay.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Great. Heard it. I heard everyone there. Okay, well, thanks, y'all. Thanks for your input. You guys are great.
I was just
Cool.
pulling your leg, Elaine.
Pardon me?
I was just pulling your leg.
Oh, what did you say to pull my leg?